All right. So, like I said, today's session, we are going to focus on firing up your instruction with Lumio and that IQ, which is using your smartboard on its own without using a connected Chromebook or without having to screen share to the board. So today's session, our kind of focus here, like we said, we want to interact with some lesson elements. We'll provide you an overview of lesson creation. Maybe it's a bit of a reminder if you've used Lumio before, or maybe you'll pick up some new tips and tricks today as we explore how to create with Lumio. And then we're going to loop that all around for everyone and really talk about how you're going to be able to deliver this lesson to your students, how you're going to be able to share it out with your students, and then how you can incorporate using your smartboard with the lesson that you create. So we'll introduce ourselves briefly, and then we will provide you with an opportunity to go ahead and introduce yourself as well. So I am Sarah Stork, Smart Professional Development Specialist, and my background is as an educator, so I was a classroom teacher for many years. In the chat with me today, I have Shelly. Shelly, if you'd like to say hi to the group.
Hi, all. I also came with 14 years of 5th through 8th grade in my background before joining Smart.
Awesome. Thanks, Shelly. So feel free to pop in to the chat and add any questions that you have. Shelly's going to be monitoring those as we go. I would love for you to go ahead and we'll give you some directions here to connect live to my lesson. So let me share that out with everyone. Let me make sure that this is running here. I'm going to go ahead and start this activity, and then we're going to provide you with those directions on how to get connected. So in order to go ahead and connect live to my lesson here, if you would like to open up a browser window and head to hellosmart.com, you can simply join as a guest today. That'll work for our purposes. And then my class ID is 786763. You are welcome to head on in and join my class. Awesome. We have someone joining on in there. Great. Feel free to get connected and we'll start interacting with this lesson. Let me know if you have any questions there. Awesome. Thanks, Tiffany. All right. So once you've had a chance to connect to this activity, you'll notice the shout it out is asking you, what is something you would like to learn today? What is, your hope, that one takeaway you would like? Why have you come into our session, right? What's something you'd like as your takeaway? So feel free, head into the shout it out. You'll get a white box once you get connected to hellosmart.com. You will be able to go ahead and type in what's something you would like as your takeaway from today's session. So awesome. Thanks, Rick. I see you were able to get connected. So I'll go ahead and just come back to the activity here. This should be sharing all out with everyone. Feel free to pop in what's something you would like as your takeaway today, what's something you would like to learn. Your answers will start popping up on my smartboard screen. So we're using the shout it out to gather some input from our students as participants here in this activity, but I might use shout it out as a way to maybe get to know my students or have them set some goals for our lesson today. Maybe I want to activate some prior knowledge or to, find out, okay, what do my students know about this topic as we are getting into it? So I see here, all right, we have some of your responses. So if I pop in here, all right, so I see, one thing maybe we're looking for today is to be able to create a lesson that maybe we're going to connect that Lumio lesson to some of our standards. So what are some of your goals that you have coming up for your students? What are you focusing on? And how can we create a lesson to speak to that or to teach to those standards? Maybe we're looking for an overview, right? Maybe just kind of getting an idea of what are some new things we can do, that broad overview there. Maybe we're looking to make some interactive lessons for students. Awesome. All right. And then maybe connecting, I think we already got to that one. Let's see if we have any others. All right, so maybe just returning after some years teaching overseas. So you just kind of want to learn about how to use the new smartboards. Oh, awesome, Tiffany, how exciting. Kind of returning, getting back into it, getting your feet wet here so you can see, what are some new things you can do with your smartboard. Awesome. All right, I think we had a couple more people pop in. So if you head into the chat, Shelly will be popping in the directions on how to get connected to my live lesson right now. So if you would like to connect with some of the activities that we're going to be starting up here, head into that chat. And like I said, Shelly will be putting those directions there, again, for everyone to get connected. All right, so let's take a look at some example lesson activities that you can use with your students. So this first example here is a whole class whiteboard. And what I'm asking my students to do on this activity, I'm going to ask my students to use this shared space to collaborate all together. And what I've given them a few images. So once you go ahead and you connect into that whole class whiteboard, you'll see we have a few images and we're going to be able to brainstorm. What are some things that you notice in these images? And then what do you wonder? So again, kind of using this to activate some prior knowledge, get students interested in this new topic that we're going to be talking about today. So we have a science lesson example coming up here. And so we're going to take a moment to talk about what do you notice and what do you wonder? So if I actually toggle off that editing access for a moment, I can now give my students those directions. They can turn their attention onto me for just a moment as we're kind of breaking down what we're going to be accomplishing today. Then I can turn on that edit access and I can remind students, okay, so you have a capital A tool at the left of your screen. And what that capital A tool is going to let you do is to tap on the screen and add a text box. So what you can do is put in your ideas. What do you notice and what do you wonder, right? Just right here on the screen. And then what you're going to be able to do is even grab, you have a little picture icon on the side too. You see little shapes and a little add a picture icon. So I could even have my students add a picture to connect. What do you think that maybe you could come up with another item that connects with what you think we're going to be learning about today? And so I could have students create some of those visuals there. So just kind of giving you an idea, just a quick way for your students to add some content to the board there in this shared space. All right, so, oh, there we go. We've got some images popping up. Now, something else that you're going to notice is that you're going to be able to tap on any one of these attributions that students have added, and you're going to be able to see who added what. And you can do that on your screen right now as well. So once I launch this shared whiteboard space, you can easily tap on that image and see who's adding what. Now, you're going to see my view is just slightly different here because I'm running this through my whiteboard on my smartboard. But if you look at your view right now as a student, you're going to be able to see who's adding what to the screen, kind of following up with those students or following up with each other. All right, so let's see some things we noticed. They all have plugs. There's an image to go with that, and wondering how are they built? All right, so let's keep going on. what I'm going to do is pull us down to the next activity. So what we're going to be learning and talking about today, I'll press start here on this interactive page, and you can do the same from your student view. We're going to be learning about circuits today. So you can see in this image, now I'm kind of breaking down this topic a little bit more for my students, but in a very visual way. So each one of you from your student connection view can tap and see each one of these labels. Or I might have students working at the board to find, okay, what are these different parts that we're looking at today? What are we learning about? Well, we're going to be talking about maybe electrical load. The object is receiving electricity. So that is our focus for today. We're talking about electricity. We're going to build some circuits here in a few minutes. This is a simple circuit. It is complete or closed circuit. It will work. Or maybe I'm going to come down here. Okay, this is a closed switch. So these are all those important pieces that students need to know going into our topic today. So this is the label reveal, game-based activity you can easily build for your students. We're using this as an example here up on the smartboard. Again, I can use this on the board just very easily and be interacting with it. And we'll show you how to build this then. All right. So now I'm going to take us down to another example page of another game that I might have my students interacting with. So this is a super sort activity. From that student connection from your device, you get your own copy of this super sort game. However, I could also have students working at the board, or I could be modeling this activity for my students. So what I'm going to ask them to do is find each one of these circuit examples. Now, if you think the picture's a little small, maybe we need to blow those up a little bit. So on each one of those tiles, there is a little kind of dashed blue box. If you tap on that, then you're going to be able to see that circuit nice and large for your own view. And if I'm looking at this one, I'm thinking, is this a working circuit or a non-working circuit? So I'm going to go ahead and think, it's a working circuit. Nope. It's a non-working circuit. All right, so now we're going to foster some conversation around why would that one be non-working? Let's take a look at this one. Working, well, I see a battery, I see some wires. Let's see, working circuit. All right, so that one worked. And again, each student has their own copy of this activity. What we'll show you then after we are finished interacting with this activity, what I'll show you is how, as a teacher, I'm collecting how students completed this activity. So what's happening right now is we're interacting with the activity, and then we'll transition to show you, what is that data that now we've collected in that activity. So we'll give you a peek at the teacher side then after we're finished interacting with this activity as participants, as students in that class perspective. All right, so I'm going to pause here. I know we've looked at a couple of things so far. We've taken a look. We use that shout it out for us to get to know each other. Maybe I'd use that to activate some prior knowledge. We took a look at that whole class whiteboard where we started to brainstorm and discuss and add our thoughts all together and collaborate in a shared space. Then we took a look at 2 interactive activities. I asked my students to use the label reveal activity, and then I asked my students to use the super sort activity to talk about the working and non-working circuits. So, looked at a few things so far. Any questions before we move on?
You seem good on this side, Sarah.
All right, sounds good. So we'll continue on there. Just giving that pause there to see if we had some of those questions, but let's see what are we going to do next. Now let's really start to interact with this topic. So I'm going to take us down to the next activity. And this activity, it is a PhET interactive simulation. So you're able just to take one of these interactive simulations and bring those right into your Lumio lesson. And again, just easily use this on your smartboard. And we'll show you how to pull up your lesson on your smartboard then. But what I'm going to, again, ask my students, for this activity, they're going to have that individual access on their devices, right? So if you are connected to my lesson right now, you are going to be able to interact with the lab. So that's where we're heading right now. We're going to head on into the lab. And once you click on that, it will bring up the lab space for you. So feel free to go ahead and start building your circuit. Now, again, I have this just easily on my board. I can have students up at the board working and creating an example, or as a teacher, I can model for my students how to complete the circuit. So maybe I'm going to start with a battery, and I'm going to add a battery to my space. Let's see, Shelly, what do you think I should add next up here?
Oh, geez. Maybe a wire.
Okay, let me go with wire. I'm going to add a wire here. Let's see, maybe I'm going to add a wire on the other side too. All right. Something I was looking at in the label reveal activity, I know I found the switch and I found the closed switch. So, maybe I'm going to need to add a switch to my example circuit here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. All right. And now I feel like I need something that's going to light up. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and add that light bulb right here. All right, and then I'm going to connect it. Well, it's not quite working yet. What do you think I need to do? Shelly, can you help me out?
You got to close that switch.
Oh, all right, let's try that. Yay! And then it worked. So we were able to create our circuit. Awesome. Thanks, Don, helped me out in the chat there too. So, yep, then I have that closed circuit there. So before we were to move on from this lab, I would want to check with my students. So again, each student has their own circuit that they're working on and creating. So before we move on from this page, what I would ask my students to do, down at the bottom right-hand corner where it says the word FET, there's 3 little dots. And so from each individual view, what I would ask students to do is tap on the word screenshot and grab a screen grab of the circuit that they built, because I'm going to want that information and they're going to need to add that to their exit ticket that we're going to do next. So if we grab a screenshot of this, and each student can grab their own screenshot of their circuit. Were they able to get their circuit working? Because I can't wait to see all of the different circuits that my students have created. So like I said, I'm going to take this now into an exit ticket for students to collect all their thoughts. But before I do that, I'm going to click on the little people with the number up in the upper left-hand corner. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and tap on student lesson pacing, because I want students to have that opportunity to go back to maybe the game. I want them to go back to the whole class whiteboard and review, what did we work on? I would want students to come back into the simulation before they completed that exit ticket. So I want them to have that flexibility. So I'm going to toggle this over to student pacing. So you can go through any page of the file. And then I'm going to model and bring up on the board. So again, now I can have something different on the board than students have on their screen. I'm going to tap on student progress here, but I also get a teacher copy of this exit ticket. So what we're going to be able to do is pull up this exit ticket. I can ask my students to go on to the next page when they're ready to complete their exit ticket. You're also going to notice on some of these pages, we've added some of that instructional audio, so I could give my students those additional directions. But here's your exit ticket for today. Pretend your friend was absent today. How would you explain what you've learned? They can add their screenshot that they just took to their exit ticket. They can add text. They can add more images. So you get that little image icon on the left. We have little shapes and then add an image. They can pull in an image, do a quick save search, or they can grab that image that they took and saved on their Chromebook. Or they can add text. They have that capital A text tool that they can use to type out their thoughts. All right, so I'll give everyone just a moment to kind of take a look at that individual page. I'll take it back here. All right, I see Shelly's telling me that she's finished. But yeah, before we look at everyone's progress there, Shelly, any questions or anything else popping in there?
No questions, just they think it's pretty cool, which I agree.
Awesome, great. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to open up Shelly's handout here, because now as we're finishing out our lesson, I would say, Shelly, what did you learn today, right? So there's a few more things added here. But this would give us the opportunity to now have kind of a digital gallery walk. I could ask students to just easily share what they've learned up on the board. We're projecting it easily in the classroom, but then I could have students explain their thinking and what are some of those new ideas from today's lesson. Everything that you did today, I will say, is saving in my copy of the lesson. So that's what I'm going to show you next, is that how as a teacher do I monitor my students' progress through this lesson? How do I collect some of that data and information so now we can continue on to our next lesson? All right. So with that said, what I will do, oh, looks like we have someone else who finished their work here. All right, so there you go. Now we can see, and you know what I can do too? I can add to this handout as well. Maybe I'll add, great job. So there we go. Just super quickly, we have that digital feedback that we're providing our students. Maybe I'll give them a digital sticker. I can add those images, or I can add, inking or text as well. All right. There we go. What I will tell you now, like I said, let's see, before we do that, let's do one more quick activity here. And I'm going to pull you in, pull you back to that teacher pacing, so now we can all be together. But in this shout it out, feel free to pop in what's something that you noticed during our time so far together. What's a way that you might be able to use Lumio to enhance your instruction? Fire up that instruction while you're using your smartboard. Maybe you use your smartboard in a few different ways. Maybe this is giving you a new idea. I see some things are popping into the chat, but feel free to add to our shout it out activity to collect some thoughts before we move on to see that teacher perspective. All right. So how do you think you're going to see Lumio kind of enhancing the instruction utilizing your smartboard so far? So feel free to pop that on in. There we go. All right, so maybe it's the thought that students have that work in front of them during that whole class lesson. So maybe we're engaging them in a new way, right? I can use this with some flexible instruction where some students are working on the lesson using their Chromebook, and maybe some students are working at the board, or maybe we are all working together in a whole class lesson. All right, a couple more things. Maybe we're guiding the lesson, right? So the teacher, we're having that collaboration, then we're having some independent practice. So again, we're building in those flexible learning opportunities for students. Maybe using the label reveal and super sort activity. Yes, with some of our English language learners, building vocabulary. We want to make sure we're giving them those visuals. So this is really providing them with some of those additional ways to interact and some of those visuals. So awesome. Thanks, everyone. All right. So if I'm moving on too quickly, you still have some thoughts, feel free to record your ideas right there in the chat. All right. So we are actually going to leave this student interaction perspective, and I'll walk you through how to sign in as a teacher and how you can create a lesson of your own, or even bring in some of your existing lessons and kind of mix and match with some new ideas here. Then, like I said, we'll wrap it around and show you how to deliver your lesson by using your smartboard. So just how to pull up your lesson very easily on your smartboard. So feel free to leave that student perspective. You have 3 little lines there, and you can click on leave class. What I am actually going to do here is I'm going to head into my home screen and pause this lesson. And I'm going to transition into sharing my computer screen. So, yep, there we go. I'm just going to switch on over to sharing my computer screen so that you can see. There we go. All right, so you can see kind of the back end of what we just experienced, right? So we kind of started with the end there. And now we're going to take it back to the beginning. And then also, how do I monitor my students' work as well? So let me hop back into my Lumio homepage here. All right, there we go. And now what you're going to be able to see is my teacher dashboard of Lumio, okay? So you can see I have my teacher name on here. I have my class ID. I have the lesson that we used today. So this was the lesson that we used. I'm going to go ahead and just open the lesson up because what I want to show you is that how do I see my students' work? How do I maybe, monitor how they've engaged in the lesson? So if I take a look through my lesson here, I can start with the whole class whiteboard, and I can come in and review my students' progress. Remember, this was that collaborative space that we used at the beginning. You can see I have all of my students' contributions. I can click, oh, here are some great questions. I can click, I can see, oh, Shelly was wondering how they are built. So now maybe I'm going to go check in with Shelly and see, oh, did your question get answered? All right. Again, I'm going to just kind of continue on here. The next activity that I'm going to go into is the super sort activity. What you can see here is I could model the activity and pull this up on the screen, but we've already engaged in the activity, right? So I'm going to go to open the dashboard. And now I'm going to see that teacher dashboard. It is going to initially hide those students' responses in case I was projecting this publicly in the class, but I'm going to go ahead and show results. I can see the most frequent incorrect answers, correct answers. I can see how the students completed the activity, what the average score was, average time on activity. Maybe each student's taking about 30 seconds on the activity, and I want to give them a reminder to take their time and look at it a little bit more closely. I can see I have some in progress, so maybe I need to go talk to students. Okay, make sure that you've completed it. But now I kind of want to drill that in and see, how per student, how they've completed it. So now I can click on student progress and show their progress. So if I head into Shelly's work here, I can see her score. I can see which ones that she had incorrect and which ones that she had correct, her time on task, right? So now I can easily see how each student has completed the activities and maybe which student I need to follow up with. All right. The other activity that I might come in and view here is this handout. So again, that student progress. We already looked at what that student progress looks like up on the board, but now I can see how my student has completed the activity. And again, I have my tools so I could write a note, add some inking, or add images to the page for my students. All right, and finally, we do have the results of the shouted out activity. So everything that we added into this activity here, I can go ahead and see, okay, what information did my students add and review? All right. Shelly, any questions before we go in and start building?
Not right now. We just wanted to make sure that the teachers know how to get to their Lumio account, make sure that they're connected.
Awesome. So let's do that now. So that was just kind of a moment just to see, okay, what information am I collecting in that lesson as my students are using it? Everything's saving automatically. If your students sign into Lumio, and I will talk through that process, if your students are signing into Lumio, their work is saving for them as well. So you're going to be able to have them come back in tomorrow and keep working on a whole class whiteboard or work on a game or go in and work on their handout. But all right, so let's access Lumio. What you're actually going to do is, I'm going to head on in, I'm going to grab a folder here. Here's my Lumio folder. What you're going to be able to do is actually start in your Google Drive. So I would encourage you right now, on your device, on your Chromebook, go ahead and just add a tab or pull up a Chrome window and open up your Google Drive. And we are going to find Lumio right inside of your Google Drive. So I will just ask you to pull up your Google Drive and then take a pause here. And that way, then in just a moment, I'll show you where to find Lumio, but it is right inside of your Google Drive. So you don't need to worry about bookmarking another site. You just need to start probably with something that you normally start with on a regular basis. All right, so once you're in your drive, you can find Lumio in two spots. One place that you'll find Lumio, if you go into the 9 little dots or that waffle up in the upper right-hand corner, you can see different Google apps that you have. If you scroll down towards the bottom, so you want to just make sure you're in your school district drive, you're going to find Lumio with the little firefly image or lightning bug, whichever term you prefer to use. But you'll find the little bug and it will say Lumio. Once you click there, you will need to sign in with Google and your school district account, and that will bring you into your Lumio account. You'll also find Lumio if you click New, More, and Lumio, you will find it right there. Then it will save your Lumio file in whichever folder that you're starting in your Google Drive. If you're coming in through the waffle, what's nice is that this Lumio lesson you're about to create will save in your Lumio folder in your Google Drive. So you're actually going to get a folder called Lumio in your Google Drive. So like I said, once you click on Lumio, go ahead and click Google, use your school account, and you'll be brought into your Lumio homepage. If this is the first time you've signed in, you may need to confirm a few questions, like you're an adult, your location. You'll put in your teacher name. Your students will see your teacher name, so you may want to put in your, whichever name that your students call you, right? If you want to change that, I can show you that briefly as well before we keep going on. If you were able to sign into Lumio, feel free in the chat, just let me know yes or ready, and then that way I know that we're ready to continue on to the next step. So feel free just to let us know once you've signed into Lumio that you are ready to keep going. Or let us know if you have any questions connecting, if you need any help.
I think we're good, Sarah.
All right, sounds good. So now from this step, a couple things just to be aware of. Once you're on your Lumio homepage, you'll have your teacher name, like I said. You will have your class ID that will stay the same. It is attached to your email address, so your students just need the one code. You don't need to give them a new code every time. I'm going to go into the word edit class. This is where you can rename your class if you wanted to add a different teacher name. You can reset your class ID, but like I said, you don't necessarily need to do that. You can manage guest access. So I asked you to join as a guest because you were then going to go build as teachers. However, my students, I would want them to use the sign in option so their work will save for them from day to day. It's a simple single sign on for them. They use Google, they use their school account. If they're already signed into their Chromebook, they kind of just click, and then they're brought through. But I might want to toggle off the guest access for students, and that way I know that they are signing in. If you come back into edit access, you can also manage immersive reader. Immersive Reader is built in to Lumio, so I'm actually going to toggle that on because I would want my students to have access to Immersive Reader. What that's going to do is going to allow them to enable that immersive reader with any text that's being added to a page in Lumio, or if you have any older Smart Notebook files, those will come in and be able to utilize that immersive reader. Even as students are adding text in a shared workspace, in that whole class whiteboard, they can then enable that immersive reader and have the text be read aloud to them, use the picture dictionary, and even use translation. So again, thinking about, supporting our students who are language learners. All right, so from here, I'm actually going to head into the tab at the top here. So I have two tabs. I have My Library and I have Lumio Library. I want to head into Lumio Library because I want to see if there's anything that already exists that I can save and then incorporate into my new lesson that I'm going to build. So if I click on Lumio Library, I can see at the top that there are some featured lessons up here. So you'll see they'll add some things, some seasonal lessons, some different collections are here, like emotional literacy, or maybe managing your classroom. Some more manipulative. So if you were looking for something like algebra tiles you want to use, or maybe a mind map for your students to use, you can grab that. So lots of different options here, or you can head up to the top and do a quick search for a topic you have coming up. So if you are teaching a specific topic, this was more of a science example today, but maybe you're looking for some more ELA lessons or math lessons. I am going to come into this STEAM category here. I can click see more if I wanted to see more lessons, but some of the examples I used today are actually already created in this electrical circuits lesson. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm just going to go ahead and save it to my library because I know that inside of this lesson, I can look through the preview, but there's lots of pages in here of some things and activities that already exist, like the label reveal activity. And so maybe I'm just going to incorporate that into my new lesson. So lots of different ideas here for you. Once I've saved that to my library, that'll just kind of keep going there. And then I will head back into my library. So feel free to take a moment, kind of search around, see if there's anything you would like to save. Because then what we're going to talk about next is how to bring in some content to Lumio. So maybe I want to bring in this new lesson that I saved, or maybe I want to bring in a lesson that I already have created. So I'll kind of take a pause here. You can see that new lesson has just been added to my Lumio library. All right, so what I'm going to do next is talk about importing my files or importing some Lumio files into my new Lumio lesson that I want to start. So you can see in the left corner, I have new and I have import. So I'm going to tap on the word import. Now I can bring in something I've saved on my device or my computer. So if you have something like a PDF downloaded to your computer, you can just pull that in and then maybe make it a whole class whiteboard or add a game to it. So if you already have some things like worksheets or graphic organizers that you use with your students, you already have them saved as a PowerPoint, as a PDF, or a Smart Notebook file, you can bring that in. You can see I can bring in files from my Google Drive. So if you have things like Google Slides you've already created with your lessons, you will just tap on Google Drive and then pull in that lesson component or pull in a whole lesson into Lumio. It will come in as kind of a sort of like a PDF where it'll come in as that just flat page. So then we're going to add interactivity on top of it once we bring it in. But I can bring in Google Slides, Docs, Google Draw. The other thing I might do is import from my library. So I might import a Lumio activity I've previously created, or maybe that someone else has created. So that is where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with my library, and I'm going to import in this file that I saved. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my library. I just saved this electrical circuits lesson, and now I'm going to click select. I can choose which pages I bring in. So maybe I want this entire lesson, or maybe I'm going to kind of break it down into different days. Maybe I'm chunking down this lesson. I know that I want the label reveal and I want this super sort game. So I'm just going to grab those two and I'm going to click add. Now I'll show you how to create some of those games from scratch, but this is just giving us an example of how I can pull in something that I already have or that somebody already created. It gave us that little reminder as this was setting up that it is saving to my Lumio homepage, my Lumio library there, but it's also saving in my Google Drive like we talked about right in the beginning. All right, so I have the label reveal activity here. Again, this is one that was already created. And I have the super sort, or this is a match them up. So I'm gonna have to go back and grab my super sort there too. So maybe I want to incorporate the match them up as well. So there are matching games. But what I'm going to do next is go ahead and bottom left-hand corner, I have this plus sign, the blue plus sign here. So I'm going to click that. These are all the other ways that I can add content to my lesson. So maybe I want to import something else. You know, maybe I want to go back and import something from my Google Drive to go along with this lesson. Maybe I'm going to add something like an ad-free YouTube video, Desmos graphing calculator. I do know that I want a PhET simulation. So that is where I'm going to go next. But let me backtrack here for just a moment. All I needed to do was come down here and click on this plus sign. And then now I'm going to head into the PhET Interactive Stimulation. So I'm going to click here. You can scroll through. There's lots of options here. Maybe you're just kind of searching for something, or maybe you're going to do a search for the exact lesson that you're looking for. Okay, so I am just going to go ahead and click. And I could see the example. Okay, this is what I want. And now I'm going to click save to my lesson. So now it's adding that new page to my lesson where I'm going to be able to have my students interacting with this lab that we took a look at. The next thing I might add to my lesson, I'm going to go back to that plus sign. So I can import again another page, but where I'm going to go is actually click on new page. And what I want to do is I want to add that notice and wonder chart. So I could look through, there's many different page templates here. I'm using the monster one today, but lots of different options in here. So I'm going to click on the monsters. And I could add just a blank page of one of these themes, a header page, but I'm coming down here to this 3-column page, and I'm going to go ahead and click add. And now I want to edit this a bit. So if I come into the title here, I am going to write, what do you notice? So I'll add in the thinking question there for students. And then I'm going to grab that text box and I'll type in the titles here. Maybe I'm going to do a quick copy, paste, so I can just grab that and then write the word wonder. All right. The other thing I wanted to add to this page, so I could add another text box here. I could add an equation. But I'm going to come into this little picture gallery and I could add a shape. I could add some lines to the page. I want to add an image. I could select something, or maybe I'm going to do a quick online search. So electric fan, because this is what we were talking about today. And I'm just going to add that quick picture here, or maybe I had something saved to my computer. Maybe I'm going to put a TV on here. So there we go. Those were some of the examples that I was asking my students to view and to talk about what did they notice and wonder. Now, before I turn this over to a page that I want students to interact with, everything is students can move around right now, manipulate. And maybe that works. Maybe I created a sorting activity for them, but what I wanted for this page was to have everything locked onto the page, and I want them to contribute the content. So I'm just going to, for these items, click and go ahead and just lock these down. So now, even though I'm going to turn this into a collaborative space for my students, I'm going to click and lock down. It's a collaborative space, so I don't want students to move this around. You can notice I can also use something like infinite cloner here, so that way we can create as many of these words as we need and drag and drop. Maybe, again, I want to create that kind of, digital manipulative for students, but for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and lock it down, and I'll clear some of this out. In the upper right-hand corner, you're going to notice I get the little person with the speaker. This is how I record directions or more information for students. So, if we're thinking about students who are progressing readers, or maybe they are language learners, I might want to add some directions up in the corner there. And then I'm going to click on my magic wand. And this is how I get to choose how my students interact with the space. So remember, we looked at that handout. So I could give each student their own copy of this chart. Maybe I want it to be a small group space, but actually what I'm going to do is make this a whole class whiteboard. So I'll click on whole class whiteboard, and now it is all set up for my students just with a couple clicks there. Now I want to reorder this, so I do want to take this activity to be the first one. Then I want them to interact with the games. Speaking of games, I'm going to go back into the plus sign down here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the game-based activities. And I have 12 different options here. So we focused on just 2 today. We saw a label reveal example today. And we saw the super sort today. So if I click here, you can see just a quick preview. If I'm creating a label reveal, I can click on the label reveal. I can click in the middle and have my students, I can grab a picture here. Maybe I want to grab an electric circuit for students. I could just grab this quick image, or I could select something. Maybe I have something more exact that I wanted for students. And then I can add that to the page here. And I would simply click and add in my text for students. All right, but I'm going to come back here and just kind of discard that for just a moment. Because the other one I want to show you is the sorting game. So if I click on super sort, this is where I could put in those 2 categories, right? So I have the working circuit, and then I have the non-working circuit, and this is where I could put in some text. So maybe I'm going to put in some descriptors like closed switch or open switch. And then maybe I could even add in some images for students as well. So again, maybe I've taken some screenshots, maybe from the PhET simulation, I've taken some completed screenshots. Or maybe I'm going to do a quick search for an image that connects to this topic for students. But I'll close that out here, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on next. I can create my own custom background, or maybe I want to use a simple background. Lots of fun background options here. I know my students always liked the pirates. They were fun. You can just grab one of these backgrounds and click finish, and now you have that game just easily added to your lesson. So this is how then students can drag and drop from their devices. All right, again, I can rearrange my file just a little bit. The last page that I'm going to add, so I'm going to go back to this plus sign, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to add a questioning and reflection page. So maybe I want to activate prior knowledge, add a manipulative or graphic organizer, but I'm going to go into question and reflection. And this is where if you scroll down, you can easily find one of these exit tickets. So here was that, what did you learn today? And now it's been added to my lesson. All right, and so now that's all complete. I might come up here and rename this lesson, and then I'm going to click finish editing. All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing this screen here. And while I do that, Shelly, let me know if any questions are popping up. But I'm actually going to come back to my smartboard and share this screen. But let me know if there's any questions.
None right now, Sarah.
All right, awesome. So let me share my smartboard screen, because I just created a lesson in Lumio, or maybe I just saved a lesson from Lumio. Now I did that on my computer, right? I created my lesson on my computer. Now what I'm doing is coming back to my smartboard, and I have just a couple quick steps. I'm going to sign into my smartboard. So that's a big key right there. You're going to sign in. There's a little smiley face up in the corner right now. You can see my image that I use. You're going to tap sign in. And then you're going to go ahead and sign in with Google and your school account. Then what you're going to do is come to the bottom and you're going to tap on Files. So as soon as I tap on Files, there is a drop-down menu up here. So maybe I'm going to tap right here. Maybe if it's on board files or downloads, maybe I need to come into the Lumio file. So I'm just going to do that. And you can see right here up top, this is the lesson that I just created with you. Together today, we just created this lesson. Here's a lesson that I saved from the Lumio Library. So I'm just going to tap. I'm going to open up my new lesson. And now what it's doing is it's actually opening up in my whiteboard on my smartboard. So now I have all those awesome whiteboard tools that I can use with students. I can deliver this lesson. I can see how, what students have added to this workspace here, this whole class whiteboard, so I can see that student progress. How do you connect your students to your lesson? So I'm talking about, I've just pulled it up here on the smartboard. But what I want is to be able to connect to my students. So I'm going to come up to this little person with a number up here in the upper left. And you'll see the directions to go to Hello Smart just automatically pop up. You could also have that somewhere in your classroom. Like I said, your class ID stays the same. One more little step here. Do you see up in the corner there, it says start sharing. So I'm not sharing my whiteboard yet. All I need to do is just tap and I'm going to start then sharing that whiteboard out. But I actually tap on it instead of just pointing to it. All right, so then I can start sharing my lesson. You can see who's connected to your lesson. You can see that lesson pacing option. And then I'm just going to tuck that back here. And now we're in that space. And I have all those great whiteboard tools, so I can pick up my pen. I can start writing on the space. That's going to ink, and it's going to stick to that inking, which, the inking will stick to the page. I can add images. I can also tap on the plus sign down here, and I could add any one of these pages that maybe you already use in your whiteboard. So kind of using that existing practice that you might be doing, maybe you'll add a quick shout it out or another whole class board, and you can just pop that right on in to your lesson. All right. So let's come in and just take a look at some of our resources. But Shelly, let me know if there are any questions that have popped up while we did that quick demo there.
So far, so good.
All right. Feel free to pop some of those questions in, everyone. Especially maybe if we went a little too quickly through something, happy to go back and review. But just as a reminder, during our session today, maybe Shelly, let's pop the link back in the chat to this document, and that way everybody has access, even though, like I said, it is also linked to your Gold Days sheet that you have. But what we did today is we talked about how you can create a lesson in Lumio, and walk up to your smartboard and easily use that lesson with your students and interact and have your students interact with that lesson. We talked about connecting students and then also taking a look at some of those whiteboard tools. So then kind of thinking about, feel free, head into the chat and let us know any thoughts coming to mind right now. How might today maybe impact your students? So what is maybe that one thing that you learned today or the one new idea? Feel free to head into the chat and share that out with us. I am going to open up the file here real quick, but before I do that, just as a reminder, you have some resources. I will link today's file to this document after the session today, so check back for that. We also have our Lumio resources as well as your JCPS digital learning channel. The Lumio playlist is linked on here as well for you. We have just a quick little survey as well that we will pop into the chat, or maybe it's already there. But what that we'll do is just give you an opportunity to provide us with some feedback after today's session. So feel free to head in. And then, like I said, feel free to share anything in the chat that is coming to mind of something that you learned today or something that you might use with your students. So again, there's that quick feedback link that should be in the chat as well. Let me know if there's any questions as we're finishing up. But if not, thanks everyone, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.